I watched him walk away from our family for a woman with the right last name. 20 years later, I stood in his boardroom as the majority shareholder while he begged to keep his job. This is how a man's greed destroyed him, and how my daughter and I built an empire from his ashes. What you're about to hear changed my life forever, and it might change how you see betrayal and redemption. If you believe in karma and second chances, hit that like button right now. Subscribe because you'll want to hear how this story ends. Trust me, you won't see this twist coming. My name is Simone Cross, and I need to take you back to where it all began. 23 years ago, I was a financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm in Chicago. I wasn't just good at my job, I was exceptional. I could look at a company's balance sheet and see things others missed. I could predict market movements, like reading tomorrow's newspaper today. But in those days, being a brilliant black woman in finance meant my ideas were often credited to someone else. That someone else was Julian Cross. Julian was everything I thought I wanted. He had this energy about him, this hunger that matched mine. He came from nothing, just like me. We'd stay late at the office, not because we were dating, but because we were dreamers. We'd order cheap takeout and talk about building something bigger than ourselves. He'd say things like, "Simona, your mind is incredible. With your brain and my connections, we could own this city." I believed him. God, I believed every word. We got married on a Tuesday afternoon at City Hall. Neither of us had family that mattered, so it was just us and two strangers as witnesses. We were 25 years old, broke as hell, but we were happy. That happiness was real. I need you to understand that because what came next wasn't a lie that started on day one. It was a truth that rotted slowly. I kept doing what I did best. I'd find the deals, run the numbers, create the presentations, and Julian would pitch them. He was charismatic, charming, knew how to work a room. Our system worked. The company started thriving because of the opportunities I identified. Julian got promoted to junior executive, then senior executive. With each promotion, something shifted. The late nights at the office became late nights at private clubs. The cheap takeout became expensive dinners with clients that I wasn't invited to. When I got pregnant with Nadia, I thought it would bring us closer. Instead, it pushed him further away. I remember the exact moment I saw it in his eyes. I was 6 months pregnant, standing in the lobby of our firm, waiting for him. A group of his new colleagues walked past, saw me, and one of them said something. I didn't hear what, but I saw Julian's face. He was embarrassed. Of me, of us, of the life we'd built together. Then she appeared, Victoria Sterling Hammond, old money. The kind of wealth that whispers instead of shouts. She was a board member's daughter, brought in as a consultant, which really meant she was there to learn the family business from the inside. She had everything Julian suddenly wanted: the right schools, the right friends, the right last name, and she wanted him. I could see it at the company holiday party, the way she touched his arm, the way he leaned in when she spoke, the way he stopped looking at me altogether. Nadia was 3 months old when I found the text messages. I wasn't snooping. His phone was on the counter, and it lit up. "Can't wait to see you tonight. She doesn't understand you like I do." I confronted him that night. Our daughter was sleeping in the next room, and I asked him directly if he was having an affair. He didn't even have the decency to lie. He said, "Simone, I love you, but I need someone who fits into the world I'm building. You're brilliant, but Victoria can open doors you can't. She comes from something. Her family has legacy." I asked him what I came from, and he went quiet. That silence told me everything. I wasn't enough because my ancestors were enslaved. Not elite, because my last name didn't open country club doors, because my brilliance made people uncomfortable instead of comfortable. The divorce was brutal. He fought me for everything, offered minimal child support, and took all the credit for the success we'd built together. I walked away with almost nothing but my daughter and my dignity. He married Victoria 6 months later. The wedding was in the society pages. I saw the photos while I was feeding Nadia at 3 in the morning in our tiny studio apartment. Those first years alone were the hardest of my life. I worked 3 jobs. During the day, I did freelance financial consulting for small businesses. At night, I waitressed. On weekends, I did bookkeeping for a local restaurant. Nadia slept in a playpen next to whatever desk or counter I was working at. I remember her 5th birthday. We had one cupcake from the grocery store, and I sang to her in our cramped apartment. She looked up at me with those big, beautiful eyes and said, "Mama, are we poor?" I told her, "Baby, we're not poor. We're just getting started. One day we'll have everything." I meant it. Here's what Julian didn't know. During our marriage, I'd kept copies of everything. Every deal I'd structured, every analysis I'd created, every projection I'd made. While he was busy climbing the social ladder, I was building something in the shadows. I started consulting for a struggling tech startup. 2 guys in a garage who had a good idea, but no business sense. I advised them on funding, structure, growth strategy. When they couldn't pay me in cash, I took equity. 20% of a company everyone thought would fail. That company didn't fail. 3 years later, it sold for $40 million. My share was $8 million. I didn't tell anyone. I lived in the same apartment, worked the same jobs, kept my head down. But now I had capital, real capital. I created Obsidian Capital, named for strength, for resilience, for the beauty and darkness. I stayed anonymous, worked through lawyers and shell companies. I became a shadow investor, finding struggling companies with brilliant potential, advising them, taking equity, and watching them soar. Nadia grew up watching me work. She'd do her homework while I analyzed market reports. She learned about compound interest before she learned algebra. By the time she was 12, she could read a balance sheet. By 16, she was advising me on investments. She got a full scholarship to Northwestern, then her MBA from Wharton. She graduated top of her class at 22. My daughter was everything I dreamed of and more. Sharp, fearless, hungry, and she'd never forgotten what we came from. Meanwhile, Julian's fairy tale was crumbling. I kept tabs, not out of bitterness, but strategy. He'd become CEO of Crossbridge Investments, the firm renamed after his marriage to Victoria. Her family's money had bought him the position. But here's the thing about buying success. You don't earn the skills to maintain it. Without me, Julian made terrible decisions. He chased flashy deals instead of solid fundamentals. He borrowed against future earnings that never materialized. Victoria's family money started drying up. Generational wealth only lasts if each generation knows how to manage it. They didn't. By the time Nadia turned 22, Crossbridge Investments was drowning. They needed a buyer or a major investor. That's when Obsidian Capital made our move. We approached them through intermediaries, anonymous, powerful, interested. Julian was desperate. The company was about to collapse, and with it, his reputation. We offered to buy 60% controlling share. He had no choice but to agree. The first board meeting after the acquisition, Julian arrived expecting faceless venture capitalists in expensive suits. The conference room was full. Board members, lawyers, accountants. He walked in with Victoria beside him, both of them wearing fake confidence like armor. Then Nadia and I walked through those doors. I wish I could describe his face. Shock doesn't cover it. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Victoria went pale. Nadia, my beautiful daughter, walked to the head of the table like she owned it, because she did. I took the seat next to her and said, "Hello, Julian. It's been 20 years. The room went silent. You could hear people breathing. Julian stammered, "Simone, how did you?" I didn't let him finish. I opened my portfolio and began reviewing Crossbridge's failures, point by point. Every bad deal, every missed opportunity, every mistake I would have advised against if he'd valued my mind over Victoria's last name. The board members were nodding. They'd suspected incompetence. Now they had proof. Julian tried to speak. "Simone, I didn't know. I never thought." I cut him off. "It's Mrs. Cross. I kept the name, gave it value. Then Nadia stood up. My daughter, who Julian had abandoned when she was an infant, presented a restructuring plan so brilliant that the entire board applauded. She projected confidence, intelligence, and strength. Julian stared at her like he was seeing a ghost of who he could have been if he'd chosen differently. Here's where I could have destroyed him. I could have fired him, humiliated him, erased him. But revenge isn't about destruction. It's about justice. I offered him a position as a junior analyst, the same role he'd held when we first met, the same salary I'd raised Nadia on. He could work his way up if he actually had talent. Victoria was furious. She stood up, called me names I won't repeat, and stormed out. She filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Turns out, she'd only loved Julian when he was successful. Julian took the job. He comes in quietly every day now. No assistant, no executive parking spot, no power lunches. He works in a cubicle, runs analysis for senior staff, and watches Nadia lead board meetings with the kind of brilliance he once claimed as his own. I see him sometimes, looking at her with something between pride and regret. He tried to apologize once, cornered me in the hallway with tears in his eyes. I told him I didn't need his apology. I needed him to understand what he'd lost. 6 months into our restructuring, Crossbridge became the most profitable it had ever been. We cut the excess, focused on fundamentals, and brought in diverse talent that had been overlooked. Companies started seeking us out. Obsidian Capital became known for turning failing businesses into industry leaders. Nadia became the face of our success, featured in Forbes and Fortune. They called her a prodigy. I called her my daughter. But here's the twist nobody saw coming, not even me. One afternoon, Nadia came into my office and closed the door. She had that look, the one she got when she discovered something important. She said, "Mom, I found something in the old Crossbridge files. Something about Dad." She pulled out documents dating back 25 years. Turns out, when Julian and I were first married, he'd secretly been siphoning my deal commissions into a personal account. Small amounts, 500 here, 1,000 there. Over 3 years, he'd stolen almost $60,000 from me. Money I'd thought was going into our joint savings. Money he'd used to buy his first investment stake, the one that got him noticed by Victoria's family. Everything Julian had built, everything he'd become, started with money he'd stolen from me. His entire empire had been funded by my stolen work, my stolen earnings, my stolen future. I sat there staring at those documents, and something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about a man leaving his wife for someone richer. This was about systematic theft, about a man who'd built his throne on my broken back and then kicked me off the mountain. I could have gone to the police. The statute of limitations had passed, but I could have destroyed his reputation completely. Instead, I called him into my office. Nadia was there. I slid the documents across my desk and watched his face crumble. He knew he was finished. I leaned back in my chair and said, "Julian, you didn't just leave me. You robbed me. You stole from your wife, the mother of your child, and used that money to seduce another woman. You built everything on stolen ground." He cried, actual tears, begged for mercy, said he'd been young and stupid and desperate. I let him finish. Then I told him the truth. "I'm not going to expose you. Not because you deserve mercy, but because I don't need to. You're going to spend the rest of your career working for the company you stole from me to build. Every day, you'll walk past your daughter and know she's better than you ever were. Every day, you'll see me and remember that the woman you thought wasn't good enough now owns everything you touch. That's your punishment, Julian. Living with what you did, knowing you can never undo it." That was 8 months ago. Crossbridge Investments is now a subsidiary of Obsidian Capital, and we're expanding into international markets. Nadia just closed a deal in Singapore that'll be studied in business schools. Julian still works in his cubicle. He's actually good at his job when he applies himself. I don't hate him anymore. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend building. People ask me if I did all this for revenge. I didn't. I did it to show my daughter that brilliance doesn't need validation from people who can't recognize it. I did it to prove that your beginning doesn't determine your ending. I did it because when someone bets against you, the best response is to become the house. 23 years ago, I was abandoned for not fitting into someone's idea of success. Today, I define what success looks like. Julian chose a princess and lost an empire. I chose my daughter, and we built a dynasty. The difference: I never forgot where I came from. I never forgot what hunger feels like. And I never, ever forgot my worth. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that setbacks are really setups. Subscribe for more stories about resilience, karma, and the power of never giving up. Comment below and tell me what you would have done in my position. Remember, your value isn't determined by who walks away. It's determined by what you build after they're gone. I'm Simone Cross, and this is how I won.